Welcome into the Dad Verb Podcast. This episode is going to be a little bit different. Our standard format that we like to follow is tackling three parenting topics, and then maybe doing a little bit of a draft, just really talking about topics that we've picked beforehand. But this is going to be a little bit different because we're going to do a bit of a Q&A. We had questions come in from our private Discord community. It's all from dads, and we figured we'd open up a discussion just about dad-related topics, dad questions from guys, and also get into Ben's life a little bit as he gets ready to welcome a baby girl here on Friday, if everything goes to plan.
Yeah,
but
2 more days.
Dude, we're really close, man. Really close for baby number 2. I'm really excited to chat with you about it and where your mind is at, if you have any nerves or where you're at. But my name is Andrew. I'm joined by Ben Brown. Ben, what's good?
Hey, what's going on? We are excited to be here in episode number 3. Excited to kind of play around with the format a little bit. Had some really good questions out of the Discord that I'm excited to lean into and talk through. Feel like hopefully as a coming up on second time dad, I have a little bit better perspective on some of the questions that came in here that I'm really looking forward to discussing with you as a dad of 3. You got a little more experience than I do.
100%. And well, I mean, even as a dad of 3, I still feel like I'm learning, and I might not know all the answers to these questions, but we're gonna do our best to.
Everybody makes it up as we go along.
That's the
biggest
dirty little
secret.
secret.
No one knows what they're doing.
100% true. Now, before we get into it, in case you are curious about the Discord community, if you buy our Father Figured course at dadverb.com, you get like instant free access to our community, or it's like $4 a month or something like that. I'll have that linked below if you're watching on YouTube. I'll also have it in the show notes so that you can find it through wherever you're listening to your podcast. So that's our private Discord. It's called Dad Verb Discord. Oh man, I should really know the name of our server, man.
I think it is the Dad Verb Discord.
Yeah, I think
all you really need to know is that what you're going to get in there is a really great community of other dads to lean on, to learn from, and to grow with,
100%.
Which is super exciting. I know that's one of the biggest challenges of fatherhood is being able to find those people to talk with that are maybe outside of your immediate circle. Maybe you're not as connected with dads in your neighborhood or don't have the support network that you want immediately around you. So this is a great community to get involved with, to talk about sleep, baby gear, development, really just rant about stuff that matters to you as a father and get some feedback and some support that you may desperately need.
Yeah. It's there for you as a resource. And I mean, there are a couple guys who don't even engage very much. They just kind of lurk, and that's totally cool. I mean, they're reading, they're following along, and it's totally fine. And we also chat about Marvel Snap strategies in the Geek Channel. So the Geek Corner
nerd
channel.
Stuff.
Yeah, 100%. So you got to weasel that stuff in there. But before we get into the questions, Ben, let's talk about the big day that's coming up, man. Friday, we've got a baby due.
Yeah. So as far as the plan is concerned, we decided to go with a scheduled C-section for our second. So with our first kid, we went to 41 weeks and ended up being induced. Unfortunately, we ended up in a situation where kind of a little bit of a scary situation for us, probably not so much for the doctors who do this stuff every day. Mm-hmm. But his heart rate dropped kind of during one long contraction into the 50s. And so they ended up, kind of rushing into the room, and all of a sudden it was one person, 2 people, 3 people, doctors are in, they start unhooking my wife and tell us like, hey, we are going to go have a C-section right now. Mm-hmm. So very kind of frantic feeling situation.
Can I ask you about that
definitely
real quick,
a little
though?
bit traumatic. Yeah, absolutely.
So, because this is a topic that I've talked to L&D nurses about, and we actually put this in the course and stuff like that. But like, as a dad, you're in there, and the expectation, right? This vision, this birth plan that you've had is to have a baby vaginally, right? Pushing and the whole 9 yards, right? But then this happens. It's completely unexpected. And you have to make a decision quick. Like, they're acting quick. This is all just like spur of the moment. You don't really have time to think. Like what we wanted is not happening, and we're about to go into surgery. So, like in that moment, What were you feeling? What was your wife feeling? Was she saying anything to you? Was she concerned about this? Like, talk me through that, because I'm curious.
Yeah, it was definitely, I think it's something, the more I learn about it, the more I find out that it's something, a lot of people have been through. Your birth plan doesn't go to plan, right? So, I mean, we even went so far as we had kind of written out the birth plan. We had, music picked out that we wanted to be able to listen to while she was, pushing, and kind of the whole 9 yards, right? We kind of had this idea of how it was going to be. And so she was induced. She was in labor for about 14 hours. So quite a long time. I think we started at like 9 o'clock the night before, and then sometime in the middle of the afternoon, they gave her basically a drug to kind of speed up her contractions, and that actually sort of led to one long contraction, which was squeezing on the baby. Tanked his heart rate for a couple minutes. So, normally babies are in kind of the 130s, 140s, kind of upwards in that area. He was down in the 50s for about, a couple minutes. Luckily that we're in a great hospital. They saw everything on the monitor. Kind of, first of all, shout out to the L&D nurses, because they remain absolutely just stone cold calm all the time, which is so helpful, because it's when things aren't going to plan, it's so easy to feel panicked.
Yeah.
And they just sort of walked in and said, okay, hey, we're looking at this. They asked for another nurse to come in. And meanwhile, I'm Dad. I'm sitting in the corner. I think I was watching The Office on my iPad with my headphones in. And I sort of started watching the flurry of activity happening. So it was like one nurse, and then two nurses, and then three nurses. And then I sort of took a headphone out to listen to what was going on, and they said, call the physician who was delivering the baby. So he came in. They started, now there's probably 6 people in the room. They're kind of all moving around pretty quickly. I'm starting to listen to what's happening, and I'm starting to realize, they're getting my wife on all fours. They're kind of checking everything. They're checking on the baby. They're checking the fetal heart monitor that they had around her belly. And then they start explaining the situation, like, hey, we're looking at your contractions. You're in one long contraction. His heart rate's been down for a little bit. So we are going to basically give you a drug to stop your contractions completely. So they gave her this little shot in the hip. It basically nixed her contractions completely.
While she was still on the Pitocin? Because she had a Pitocin
drip.
While
she's still... Exactly. Yeah.
So they just stopped the drip and then shot her.
So they just stopped it. They gave her the shot. It stopped her contractions completely. And so they were kind of monitoring him. As they were getting ready for the OR, they realized his heart rate was coming back up, so they could kind of actually slow down a little bit, which was good. Because at this point, they're just handing me what they call a bunny suit, which is just this like white kind of papery feeling suit. It's basically like surgical scrubs, more or less.
Yeah.
And a mask and some other stuff. And they're like, hey, you're going to grab all your stuff. You're going to come with us. We're going to throw it in this locked room, and we're going to wheel her out to the OR. We're having a C-section. Like, just no real choice. Now, apparently, once my wife got back to the OR and things slowed down a little bit, they said, hey, his heart rate's back up. You have the option of not doing a C-section, but essentially you have to start the whole thing over again. We're going to basically start from scratch. We've stopped your labor, and so you're going to start all over again. Do you want to continue with that? Obviously, she said no. And so basically they wheel her back in this room. I'm in my bunny suit, my hairnet, even though I have a lack of hair, and all my masks and all this stuff. All our stuff is gone. And everybody goes through this big set of double doors, and the nurse turns around and says, okay, Dad, stay here. We'll be back to get you. And everybody leaves. Was in the hallway by myself, kind of just waiting for someone to come back through the doors and get me. Like I said, it felt like an eternity. It was probably 15 minutes. I'm not super religious, but it's one of the few times in my life I just stood there and prayed. Because I didn't have any updates. I had no information. I didn't know what was happening to my wife. I didn't know if the baby was okay. Like, no clue. And then all of a sudden, somebody pops back through the doors and goes, come on, we got to go. It's like, okay. So then I am walked into this OR. The big sheet is up. Everything's, she's strapped down to the table, and I sort of just locked eyes with her, walked in, sat down in the chair they had for me. And, I remember just like sitting there and again, still not knowing that if the baby's okay or not. And I remember just like, it felt like forever. We're sitting there and I know they're like doing her C-section and all this stuff. And I remember very vividly, like the moment that the baby came out and started to cry. And it like, as soon as I heard that first like wail, I just lost it. I mean, absolutely just like broke down, because it was like this huge wave of relief of like, okay, at least I know like our son is okay. He's out, they're doing all their checks and making sure he's healthy and all that. And then it was kind of challenging, because then it's like my wife had, she always has issues with like anesthesia. And so her blood pressure started to drop. So she was kind of like in and out of consciousness. So now I'm like looking at her. Now I'm worried about her. So like I'm looking at her, and then I'm looking at my new son over on this table being checked out. And I remember looking at her and going, I don't know where to go. And like, she's literally in the middle of being like, she's literally in the middle of like being put back together. Yeah. And I looked at her and I was like, I don't know where to go. And she just looked at me and said, go be with the baby. And I was like, okay. And so I went and held my son for the first time. And
what was the very first thing? What was the very first thing that you locked into? That when you saw the baby, like for me, when I saw my son for the first time, I vividly remember seeing his chest, just like breathing his first bits of air and crying and screaming. But I just remember locking into that, like the chest opening and closing, opening, closing. I was like,
because oh my gosh, that's real.
I just like, I'd never seen real. I've seen babies, but like fresh out like that. It was just like, that's my son. And just seeing that for the first time, I was like, oh my goodness. And then with our second, the first thing I locked into were his eyes. I just was like, look at his eyes. Look at those eyes. So those were the first two things. But for you, your son, what was the first thing that you locked into?
I remember just his size, just realizing how small he was, and just like this tiny little wriggling pink thing, and the sound and the noise they make, and just like all these little, he didn't cry a ton. He cried a little bit. And then they kind of got him wrapped up and handed him over to me, and they were like, here you go. I was like, oh my God, I have a kid.
Yeah.
I remember like, so they gave her a bunch of fluids. So he came out like kind of all swollen up. Like he was like a little tick. Like he was just all swollen from all the fluids they had given her. And, he's all red and pink and like gooey looking, all kinds of crazy, babies come out looking weird.
They do. Cheesy.
But I do remember, I think it was in like the first stage of the recovery room, like right after the OR. And I remember sitting there, and he's like wrapped up in the little hospital blanket. They've done all their checks and stuff. He's got his little hat on. And I remember sitting there and just like holding him kind of like this, and just like in front of me, like cradling him like he was the single most precious thing on the planet. Like, and knowing in that moment, like that's everything, like right there. Like that's, I don't think I realized how badly I wanted to be a father until that moment, and like how much that meant, was until you like look at your kid for the first time. And I remember calling my mom afterwards too, and telling her like, she tried to explain to me a couple times, like how much she loved me, like how much you mean to your parents or whatever that is. And she's like, I'm telling you, you're not going to understand until you hold your own kid. And she's like, then you'll get it. Then you'll understand. And I remember calling her after that and being like, and I asked her, I was like, is this how much you love me? And she's like, yes, this is what I've been trying to explain to you. And I was like, okay, I get it now.
Wow.
And that was like a hugely sort of eye-opening experience.
That's incredible, man. It's really cool to hear that. Now, as you prepare for baby number 2, yes. Are there any things that like that you have a little bit of trepidation or fear about, or do you feel like, like I've got this, like I've been in the rodeo once, like I'm pretty sure I could do this? Like what's one thing that is kind of like, I'm a little scared about dad part 2?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, it's not the mechanics of like raising a kid, right? Like the diaper changes, the late nights, the early mornings, like I get all that, right? We've done it once. It's super hard. But I think now having a toddler to compare it to as well, it's like everybody tells you that the infant stage like isn't really the hardest. I think mentally it's kind of the hardest because it's just you're not sleeping at all.
Yes. Yes.
But it's like once they get to be toddlers, just have to, it's very difficult.
It's a physical and mental game. It's both,
right?
Because there's just
so much energy.
Yeah,
they are a lot. But it's you kind of give yourself if you give over to it and just allow yourself to like really be in it and be engaged with them. That's when I found kind of the best experiences have come from that. But the thing I worry about with baby number 2 and that I've really kind of struggled with mentally is like, you love your first kid so much. Like I love my wife. I love my family. I didn't know that I had the capacity to love another human being as much as I love my son. Yeah. And then it's like, do I have enough to give to baby number 2? Like I don't understand how I could possibly love another child without taking something away from my son.
I wish I could explain to you how that capacity builds or how your heart expands. I just don't know how to explain it because I to some extent, I had the same concern. My wife had the same concern. We were talking about it leading up to second kid, but I don't know how to actually explain it, but like it just happens. It just does. Like the love that you have for your first, the second is just an equal amount. It really is. Like I don't know how to explain that, but you will find your heart, the capacity just like double up. And there it is. Like there's just, 2 bits of importance right there. And, you care for both equally, differently, especially, as they get older and the personalities start to, evolve and manifest, and you can understand how you relate to them and how you engage with them. And the love is different because they're different people, but
right.
The strength of it is equal.
At
least for me, me.
Yeah.
And
my
it's
sister-in-law
a hard
said the same thing. She's got 2 boys, and we asked her the same thing. We're like, and my uncle has 3 kids too. He's a little closer to us in age, about 10 years older than us. So he has like a 14-year-old and 2 10 or 11-year-old boys, I think. And I was like, how do you love the rest of your kids the same as the first one? He's like, it just happens. It's just, it's just, again, I think of it as the same way as like my mom told me I wouldn't understand how much she loved me until I had my own kid. And now I get it. And now everybody tells me, you're not going to understand that you have this sort of this capacity for loving another human being until you have, more than one. And I think that kind of speaks to like this idea that love is like this infinite well. And I think that's one of the most amazing things about like becoming a parent and caring for someone is like, I think we touched on it in like the last episode, right? Like your relationship with your toddler can be like kind of toxic. Like they're very demanding. They're super bossy. Sometimes they have like little violent outbursts.
It's like those Sour Patch Kids commercials.
Yeah. As soon
it's
as
like their first are sweet and then they're sour.
I miss him so much.
Yeah.
I miss him now that he's sleeping.
Yeah.
And it's like you just have this infinite capacity to love your kids. And it's like, everybody says like that will just grow with the second. So like that was kind of my biggest concern. Like I said, the mechanics of it I think are pretty straightforward, but it's that am I enough and do I have enough to give what I think they deserve?
So the thing is, I think you will. Love is one thing. I think the harder thing to delineate, at least for me, was like the ability to divide like attention, because the reality is like a newborn like needs attention, and like your oldest, like he's not gonna like fall by the wayside, but like there are gonna be times where he wants your attention, he wants something, and the baby's crying, and you're gonna have to make that choice of like, buddy, I gotta feed the baby right now, or I gotta do this with the baby. The baby's the baby, like I gotta attend. And then there's like this like there a little slight power struggle, and that, I mean, that's like what was kind of most difficult to me early on. So like love them equally, but the ability to like, I actually need to focus my attention here, but I'm sorry, I just have to. That's a hard thing, That's a hard thing.
Yeah, and that's another thing that I worry about is like, he's an only child right now. He's got both of his parents are very sort of actively engaged with him all the time.
Yeah.
And so I think one of the important things that I've heard people make the point of is like, make sure that they feel like each child has special time. So like there's stuff like he loves to be outside. So like I've invested in like camping equipment, because like my wife's not going to camp with me. I totally understand that, but he will. Or he might. At least now he seems like he's really interested in like sleeping in a tent and being outside and like building a fire. I mean, again, he's 2. He's kind of interested in whatever it is that I want to do.
Yeah.
But really finding those opportunities to like take him with me, involve him, and for her to do the same. Like take him to do, just pick him up early from school and go do like a lunch date or something where he just gets time with us, and then our daughter goes with grandma or stays at daycare and we go pick her up later.
Right. So I made a video on this.
He gets that special time.
So I made a video on this about like, like forming some sort of like ritual or tradition with your kid. It's something that they can like really associate as like a special time with like ex-parent. Right. But I think, especially for this, also being conscious of like making sure that you have something on a smaller scale, like every night, like make it a point to be like, I give him the bath, or I put him down every night or something where it's just like, he knows that at least one part of the day, like this is the thing that, he gets to do with you. So, and it's going to take, some time to like figure out like what that is, but I think that's something that I've tried to do with our kids. Like my wife will always say like, I give him baths all the time. Like I give him baths like 95% of the time, because like that's just like the thing that I do. Right.
But that's your special time with them. Like with my son, he's like super active 2-year-old, very like physical kid. Loves to play ball and all this stuff, but he, for some reason, and I don't know if this is like my own fault or if this is like, maybe we'll let him watch too much TV, but he loves to wrestle. So like he calls it wrestling. So he wants to wrestle. So like every night before bed, just about. So like we'll read a book, or usually we'll wrestle before book time, because book time is like relaxing time. But we'll sit there and we'll set a 10-minute timer, and we're like, all right, now it's time to wrestle. And we just sit there and play fight for 10 minutes and just,
that's so fun.
I like throw him on the bed, and like he jumps over my back and he's, hanging on my neck and doing all kinds of stuff. But that's like, his mom's not going to do that with him, but like, that's my role as like dad, is like the play fighting and and mom does it sometimes, but it's like, that's our like
us as ritual. Us as dads, like as a collective, like that kind of is our thing, that's our thing. And I remember hearing early from a lot of guys early on, like, especially in that newborn stage, like, what's my role here? Like everything is mom all the time. And some, like breastfeeding families, like the whole act of feeding, like, guys don't really get to do that unless there's like pumping or whatever. But like, it's kind of hard to define like what that role is. And I really felt a kick on more in kind of like after year 1, toddler years, where I could be a little bit more physical and wrestle. And to this day, like Henry and I, like my Henry's just a big soccer kid. A big, I'm sorry, not soccer. I meant big sports kid altogether, football, soccer, everything. But like, we have a little game room upstairs and we play like soccer upstairs. Like we did that last night. We didn't do it tonight, but we play soccer like a lot. So it's, that physical dynamic is something that really is fun to embrace and let that kind of be a driving force for activity and and
But it's all that
engagement and
little
play.
stuff. I mean, that's the stuff that they're gonna remember and value.
Yeah.
You know, I think as they get older, is we read to them every single night, but that's something that we both do. Yeah, it's the fun part now is we have a gym in the garage, and so we've got a bunch of like kettlebells and just workout equipment and stuff. And I didn't realize how much he'd want to be out there with me.
Yeah.
So like if I'm out there swinging kettlebells, like we have little ones that are about his size, and he'll pick them up and start just emulating everything I do.
My son's
all
the
the
same
moves,
thing.
Everything.
Yeah,
It's awesome.
they'll just
And
start
I'm like,
squatting
okay,
up and down,
yeah,
doing lunges.
Yeah,
And I'm like,
I just
wow.
give him sets. I'm like, all right, it's your turn. It's your set. So like,
Yeah.
while I'm taking my break, he does his set. And like, it's those little things that I think are that's that bond that you're building that, gives you that special time with that kid. And then hopefully I develop whatever it is with my daughter that she wants to do that we can bond over.
100%. Well, I'm excited to hear from you once you've crossed that plane. It was good to hear, where your head is at right now. But come a couple days, we'll see how you're feeling and how you're adjusting. But for now, I think it'd be good to move on to some questions that we were able to pull from the Discord and dive into some things that are on guys' minds. So. Where should we start? I mean, we had a couple things come in.
Yeah, you want to start with our first question was diaper bag EDC. Like, what do you carry in your diaper bag?
You know what? I should do a full dedicated YouTube video on
I
this.
know. I really need to do a video on this.
Pretty
'cause
simple.
it's
This could be a
changed.
good IG reel, a good short, good TikTok. I think really simple for me though. Just diapers, wipes, obviously. We formula feed, so we usually have an Avent bottle with pre-measured out formula, and then we'll just use like bottled water. You can also do the inverse of that, where you have empty bottles and then like a kind of like a little Munchkin formula holder. And
dispensers.
then yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then, the bottles are like pre-filled with water. You like take the dispenser and you dump it in. So anyway, we have some sort of variation of that where we've got feeding things. We've got diapers, we've got the wipes. And I don't know if you're brand specific, we use Pampers wipes, but then Pampers, diapers, Huggies, wipes. That's just how we roll.
Oh, we're the exact opposite. Huggies, diapers, Pampers, wipes.
There you go. So, and then we've got guys in the Discord who are like testing different brands of diapers, which is interesting. That'd be a fun video. So other than those things though, we have an 8-month-old. So for us, we've got like snacks. We call them like surfboards. They're like these like little like dissolvable.
The teether. Yeah.
Like the teether boards. Yeah.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
So we have those. You've got like our
have you ever eaten one of those?
Yeah, they just they taste like nothing, and they just dissolve like that. So.
It's like the banana ones. I feel like it tastes like if someone opened a banana 6 feet away from you and you took a really deep breath.
Yeah, that.
Like, that's what it tastes like. It's just
air.
Just a hint of banana air.
Yup.
They love them.
Absolutely. Oh man. So yeah, we've got a couple of those, and then we just have a range of like a couple small little toys that she typically likes, like crinkle things. But as she's getting older, there's the things that she's playing with developmentally are ever evolving. So I'll just lump it into the category of toys. So we've got, the diapers, wipes, food, formula, toys. That's kind of the basics. And then I always have a camera on me. So, well, you know what? No, that's correction. I used to always have a camera on me. I used to have just like a small Sony A6400 that I also threw into my bag. But just the phones have just gotten so much better now. So now I'm just
they're so
everything.
Good.
So
that iPhone 14. We finally went to the 14 Pro. I went to the 14 Pro Max.
Oh yeah.
Just the camera system is so unbelievable on smartphones now. So it's like
I just upgraded to the 14 from the iPhone 10, the iPhone X from 2018. Had that until about a month ago. Not joking.
Wow.
So yeah,
that is a big jump.
Oh, it was like huge. And I'm a I'm a content creator. Like I'm a video content creator. Like
you're
it's
like
my
a
job.
tech guy too.
I know, right? And here I am with the old iPhone 10. I was just like, so I actually bought my
whatever works
wife.
for you.
I know. Right? Oh, actually, last year I upgraded her phone first, and then I waited a year
Power
and upgraded
move.
mine. Yeah, dude. That's because I'm trying to
ball out. Be like, hey, look, I'm gonna give you the upgrade.
There you go. There you go. So, yeah, no, but anyway, back to the question at hand. Keep it really basic. And in the bag that I use, there's a dad who invented a bag called a Kin Built, and I still use that thing. That's my dad bag of choice. It's cool. It's like a kind of a tool boxy kind of a thing where it zips from the top and then it opens up. It's cool.
One I've never used.
Yeah, I like that. What's your everyday carry looking like?
Yeah, it varies. So I will say, as our son is now 2.5, it has changed drastically as he's gotten older. So as he's gotten older, we just need less and less stuff. My first bag was it was the 511 Tactical Rush 12, which is it's a backpack. It's basically like kind of a low vis like tactical backpack, right? There's
You're wearing 511 stuff right now.
Yeah, I actually just realized I'm wearing like my 511 sweatshirt.
Not sponsored. Not sponsored.
Yeah,
we like to think our
sponsored,
sponsors no one because we don't have one
Yeah,
yet.
sponsor is nobody. But what I liked about that was the organization, because there were a bunch of like admin pockets. There were like these mesh stash pockets inside. But typically, what I would carry in there is, something to feed, something to change, something to entertain, and then sort of like other random stuff that I just carry all the time.
Yeah.
So, we were in the early days, he was breastfed or bottle fed. So we would have usually like a small cooler or some sort of, whether it's breast milk or formula or whatever it is, and some kind of small cooler in the bottom of the bag. One pro tip that I loved was I would use packing cubes. So invest in packing cubes, because if you have to organize all your stuff, it makes it really easy to just grab it out. So I would have like my changing packing cube, and it had like diapers, it had wipes, it had all the stuff that I needed to get the baby changed. So little changing pad, all that stuff. So I could just grab that out if I needed to. And then I had my snack cube, and that had all the food, teethers, whatever it was. And then I had in the admin pockets, I would have like my entertainment stuff. So if he needed a toy or needed something to entertain him, or a teether, whatever it was, I had that in one pocket. And then I had like the sanitizers and stuff, like toy wipes, boogie wipes, hand sanitizer, all that in another. And then for me, this is something that's never changed. It's something that I always carry, simply because I'm a little, I don't want to call myself paranoid, but I like to be prepared for whatever the situation might be. It's a crazy world out there. You never know. So I always carry a first aid kit. So like a small 2-person first aid kit, always in every bag that I have. And then I also always carry a tourniquet. Just in case. So I use.
You're like a real dad.
So I usually use what's called like a rat's tourniquet, which is like fairly small, and it's from what they've shown, it seems to be better for smaller limbs. So I'm more concerned of like something happens to my kid that's very traumatic. There's not going to be help anytime immediate, and I need to stem some bleeding. Then I've got that with me. Fingers crossed I never have to use anything like that, but it's there in case I absolutely need it. And then the last thing I carry is like a multi-tool. So like a Leatherman something or other, just because
you have that on your person,
useful.
right? You don't have that in your bag?
No, that stays in my diaper bag.
Oh,
so
okay.
I have a multi-tool that stays in the truck, and one that stays in my bag that I carry on my person.
Gotcha.
And then of course, like, in my pockets and stuff, I've got wallets and pocket knives and all that stuff that I just carry on myself every day.
So if you're not watching on YouTube, what I'm about to do is I'm about to show Ben my bag. So basically the weight is it's a, how do I describe this? It's it's kind of shaped more like a toolbox kind of a thing. And from the top, it opens up kind of like.
Oh, yeah. It's got like a kind of a clamshell
there you
opening
go.
at the top.
So in there, you've got, these are wipes. There you go. All dried out wipes. So you've got like the main compartment right here. But then inside, you've got each individual pocket for like diapers, maybe a couple bottles or what have you in each pocket. So you can keep it really nicely organized. And then on the outside, we've got like these other pockets and then a zip so that you can have, you've got like pencils, pens, a lot of that stuff. You can put iPads, whatever you need in here. And on the back is another compartment for your changing pad. So we've got like the changing pad back here, which I guess I also have a changing pad in my bag, which I failed to mention because you always kind of make changes on the go.
What I found works really well as a changing pad? I have these...
a car floor.
Car floor works. We'll have to talk about this at one point. I think a full-size pickup is one of the most practical family vehicles on the market because the tailgate is the perfect height for a changing pad. I change my kid on the tailgate constantly. It's amazing.
Yeah, and then you never have to worry about like poop or pee getting on anything. You just wipe it down super fast. Yeah, no, it's super simple. We've done a lot of trunk changes.
Yep, trunk
and
changes.
And it's always
great.
So stressful, man. Gosh.
But so what I use for a changing pad, like super minimal, is you can buy these microfiber towels. It's like a travel towel.
Yeah.
And they're super thin, super lightweight. They fold down really easy. And I just stick one of those in my bag because now that our son's a little older, I carry a lot less stuff. So I use either, I think it's the Chrome Cadet sling bag, which is like kind of a 9-liter sling, which kind of carries, a couple pull-ups, some wipes, a bib, and like all the basic stuff, right?
Yeah,
but it's really, if we're running into the mall, it's a couple things. Or I use the Alpaca Bravo X sling, which is like kind of a larger, almost like a fanny pack or a chest bag. But that carries all my stuff too.
Hey, so fanny packs, just real quick. Fanny packs kind of like made a slight resurgence in like the last little bit. Here's the thing though. I'm on that train. I feel like
100%.
I was on it before it started becoming a thing again because I'm a camera guy. And just like having the stuff right in front, my cameras, my lenses, just being able to tuck that stuff in there, and just swapping lenses, doing whatever. I'm like, this fanny pack is phenomenal. I don't care how dumb you think it looks. Like this is
my wife used to make fun of me
super
all the time
functional
for having a fanny pack, and I was
it's
like,
amazing.
Look how functional my bag is. I was
for
like,
real.
I got snacks, I got camera stuff, I got all the stuff for the baby, all set up right here. It's perfect.
I'm into. So I mean, I really want to find like the ultimate dad bag. You know, John over at Fathercraft.
Yeah,
I think they just made a bag. I haven't seen it. I haven't tested it. I don't know anything. I don't know what it's out.
I've been testing it out.
How have you liked it? I want like an ultimate dad bag.
It's really good.
Is it good?
It's a full size bag. So I would say it's
John, hook
probably
me up,
built more for people that have really young kids and then want to transition it to being an everyday carry bag. I will say I think the modularity of it is really cool. So there's pieces that kind of come in and out. There's like a little like grab and go bag that you can use that we used I think at Disney. But the design is really thoughtful, kind of where they place the pockets. There's stroller straps. There's like a big kind of a real beefy like handle that you can hang like you can hang it from like a stall door, right?
Right.
There's I think a built-in changing pad, if I remember right. And then just the materials are like pretty durable. They're wipeable. Like I said, we took it to Disney World and kind of, beat it up a little bit and it held its own. It was great.
See, I was able to get a peek at it like through his social and stuff, but I just haven't been able to like reach out and be like, oh, I think this would be cool for me to test because stylistically, I want like a dad bag that has that nice, modularity, like you talked about, great function, all that, but doesn't look overly militaristic. Because I feel like a lot of the dad bags are just like looks like Kevlar, which I'm cool with. Like I'm fine with that, but I'm more of just like
high speed, low drag stuff.
Yeah. So, but for me, like aesthetically, my preference is just a little bit more like sleek, matte black, minimalistic look. Something like, I think there's a brand called Peak Design. That's more for cameras.
Yeah, Peak makes great stuff.
Peak makes
but
amazing
very
stuff.
straightforward, clean lines, very like kind of Scandinavian design.
But I'm actually kind of into that, right? But there's another brand called Vianetic, I think. So I don't know, like the ultimate dad bag. I don't know, but I feel like that's where I would kind of lean to. But I don't know.
I have for my everyday bag, I have a bag from Vertex, Vertx, that I really like. Cause it's got this like, so it has molly webbing on the front.
Yeah.
But there's a panel that you can actually pull up over the molly webbing to make it just look like a normal backpack.
Yeah. That's cool.
Or you can actually like tuck that panel underneath. So if you want to hook stuff to the front of the bag, you can. So you don't have to be like, super military if you don't want to.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let's dive in. And by the way, that question was submitted by Andrew1247 on our Discord. He
Utah
also
Andrew.
No, Utah Andrew. There's a lot of Andrews in our Discord, guys. So if you're
in the Discord,
if you're named Andrew, don't join our Discord because the quote has been met.
Of Andrews in the Discord.
He also followed it up with hey, budgeting for families, which that is a very deep topic that I don't think we're going to get into right now. Maybe we'll hold off on that because that's a very. We also have to preface it by saying like we're just guys who we're trying to make responsible decisions, but we're not financial experts. And I think and Ben also works kind of in that realm, so he kind of has to be careful what he says legally.
I have to be careful what advice I give, so we end up in a federal jail.
But I think that is something because I don't know who does the finances in your family. Is it you or your wife? Who handles that?
It's a combination, but she is much better with maintaining the budget than I am. I'll spend money if I feel bad. I'll spend money because, hey, it looks like a good deal. I'll spend money because, hey, I can't take it with me when I die. Just whatever reason. Like it's a sunny Tuesday, so like let me go spend more money than I have. Yeah,
that's my wife. Let me just spend
together,
at Target.
But it doesn't mean if I'll stick to it.
So I'm more kind of like the rigid planner in our home. So I don't know. That'll be a fun dynamic to discuss on a different episode because I think we can literally do a full hour just on that question alone. Yeah. Saving, doing 529s, Roth IRAs, 401ks, all the blah blah blah.
Yeah.
How to diversify.
Kids are expensive.
Yeah. That's basically what some does. Kids are expensive. You got to alter your lifestyle, sacrifice a little bit because it gets pricey. Also inflation. Play dates. All right. So Prince Bougie, who's actually one of our mods, asked about play dates. I find it more awkward than asking someone out on a date, dude. Finding friends.
Play dates are rough.
I will say, ever since we moved to where we're currently at in Texas, it's gotten a lot better because we found so many people. I'm a church going guy. We found a lot of friends with kids who are similar age through there, and then just in our neighborhood as well. Like our whole street is basically made up of people who are, mid-30s with kids who are exactly the same age. So like we've been really fortunate to move into an area that's like perfect for us. But that wasn't the case, for like the first few years, like when Henry was basically 1 to 3, we literally felt alone. And it was so hard to like find friends and people to be like, hey, you want to set up a day where we can, let's figure out a way for our kids can talk and maybe we can be friends. It was weird. It's weird. Right. So it's hard.
And it's really weird.
But yeah, I mean, how have you guys gone about that?
Like we're really fortunate in that we have friends in the area. A few miles over from us, we live in South Carolina, and so we have a neighborhood of a lot of young families. So a lot of people in their kind of mid-30s with young kids, 1, 2, 3 years old, and then kind of all the way up through like teenagers and going off to college. And then we're also really fortunate that a lot of our friends kind of live in this area. And a lot of them are kind of in the same boat as we are, have, 1 or 2 kids around the same age. So we typically don't have to set up a lot of play dates. But it is weird, even your kids might get along, and this is sort of the weird thing, right? Is like your kids might get along with these other kids, but maybe you don't get along with the parents.
Yeah.
There's nothing against them. It's just, you don't have that kind of relationship. And so it's like, you have to find that line of like, I don't want to project my, awkwardness with the other parents onto my kid because they're having a great time.
Yeah.
So how do we kind of get over that and find a happy medium or a balance so that our kids can play together, everybody's happy. But maybe it's okay to like not really interact with the other parents and just like let your kid go over there and play as long as you trust them to keep your kid safe.
Yeah. So when we first moved here, we had a friend of ours. She really cool. Her name is Allie, and her son and my son Henry, they've been like really good friends from the get-go, it feels like. And I remember she told my wife, like, hey, Henry, you can just come over and we can have Henry over and play. And Katie wasn't sure if it was like, so does this mean I'm dropping him off or am I staying? And like, what is this? And Allie's a good friend of ours now, or a good friend of my wife's now. But I remember like my wife, like leading up to that first play date, she was like, I don't know what this is, like how do we do this? And then basically I think the way it went down was she showed up at the door, knocked at the door, dropped Henry off. And then Allie's like, all right, we'll see you later. Maybe a couple hours or something like that. And Katie's like, okay. So Katie came back home childless. I'm like, where's Henry? She's like, just kind of dropped him off.
Like, hey man, where'd our kid go?
Yeah. So, but then we're like, this is great. We can like do something. You want to watch like a show? Or like, yeah. So we just, we hung out and it was great. But the thing is like that family, like we actually like we chat with them but there's we can have it either or. We just drop the kids off. We have that trust. We've built that rapport and it's cool. Or, I remember that first go was kind of like, how does this work? And then the other thing happened where like they just showed up and they just dropped the kid off. And then, and it was funny too. Cause I remember, I think it was like Henry was like, I pooped over there. And then we were like, so what happened? Like she wiped me. I'm like great. All right, cool.
Yeah. It's like there are also certain like boundaries that you don't really think about when you're leaving your kid off at somebody else's house. Like, if they're not fully potty trained and they can't clean themselves, like, they're going to need help with that. So if they're over there for several hours, like that's going to be a thing.
That's why you need to build a level of friendship first.
Right.
It's
right. And that's the important part. And I think that's the hard thing, right? Is, and I think that's kind of where this question came from in the Discord was, it's like, well, what if I don't have that friend group that also has kids? Maybe I'm the first one to have kids in my friend group, or maybe I move somewhere new. We don't have a lot of friends.
That's what happened to me.
It's like, how do you start that relationship to say, hey, you're like, because it's weird to walk up to another parent and be like, hey, your kid seems cool. You want to let them hang out with my kid? Like, that's sort of an awkward thing to say to someone, but like that's essentially what you're asking.
Basically,
like, your kid seems nice. Hopefully you aren't terrible.
So what we learned,
let's let our kids hang out.
So here's what it was really, really hard for us the first 3 years because like we didn't have any friends. But what I learned is that you become friends with the parents of whoever your kid naturally becomes friends with. Like whoever they start gravitating toward, they become the magnet, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, is that your son or is that your daughter? Son seems hanging out with them. I'm Andrew. How are you? And it's like they seem to be liking each other. Anytime you're free, if you do want a break, you just drop off your kid. We're happy to watch him, and maybe we can go back and forth. How you feel about that? And you just what happens is it happens organically because your kids are leading the way, not because you're taking the initiative. It's more like the kids are doing it. Whether that's like your kids are hanging out with other kids at school or church or on a soccer team or whatever. We just kind of like see who he's hanging out with, and we're like, who are the parents? All right, cool. And then, but then sometimes like, we see the parents of the kids and we're just like, probably not. You know, like they're not.
Oh, that's gonna be a no for me.
Yeah, they're not our flavor. So
Yeah,
a little weird.
You know,
No.
I totally get that. I mean, yeah, it happens. I mean, you know, you try not to sort of project your judgments of other people onto your kids, and just let them, you know, be like, look, I shouldn't take my preconceived notions and make this into, you know, well, you shouldn't be friends with that kid. It's like,
Well,
I want my
that's the
kid to be
magic.
friends with
That's
everybody.
the magic of kids. Like, especially like
Right.
with our kids, everyone is cool. It doesn't matter if they're a boy or a girl, or if they're in a wheelchair, or if they're Asian or black. Like, it doesn't matter. Nothing matters. You're a human and you're kind of cool. You like playing with Legos. That's it. That's it. And it's amazing to see how
We're
like
friends.
everyone is equal. We're friends. Like, do you want to play? And like, he plays with everyone who wants to play with him. Doesn't matter what they look like, which is amazing.
It's
and
cool to see how accepting kids are of other people.
And because of
Realize
that,
how
like,
much they learn from their environment.
yeah, they're just in it for fun, man. They just want to have fun, and they just go. And it's really cool that like some of the friends that we have are because Henry just walked into a situation with an open mind, just said, hey, you're going to play with me now. We're going to be friends. And then it just kind of blossomed. And now we're friends with that kid's
You
parents.
have blue shoes. I have blue shoes. Let's be pals.
We are best friends. So yeah, exactly.
It doesn't work that way once you're a grown up, but
Yeah. Yeah. But don't you wish it did? Don't you wish it did? But
I really just, I wish I could just be friends with like the blue shoe people.
that's colorism, man.
I know. I shouldn't.
What about the red shoe
based on
people?
the color of your shoes. I know. They can be cool too.
All right. So,
All right. You want to get into the last question that we had in here?
yeah, man. Why don't you kick that? Oh, well, one question came in. I really like the Pokemon card episode. Oh, that was submitted by a different Andrew.
You want to get into Pokemon?
No, we're not going to get into
there was
Pokemon
this
cards.
Other one too.
You want me to get into Pokemon
we'll
cards
be here all night?
No. Don't get me started. No, the other. Well, all right. We'll cap it off with something that was submitted from another one of our mods, also named Andrew, out in Utah. And let me just read it verbatim. Is that cool? So,
Go for it.
So he starts it off by saying, like, install the bidet now, like referring to episode 1 of our podcast.
Episode 1.
Because I've been slacking on getting a bidet. But then he goes, second, I think there's worth repeating in every podcast as a theme that you as the father are part of this pregnancy journey too. So to preface that, a lot of the course content that we created was about like the pregnancy phase. But now we also have first year stuff. But Andrew previously shared his experience of the whole pregnancy and how he felt less than by the birthing teams, by the medical staff. But anyway, I'll keep reading. You, as the dad, right? You have emotions, fears, stresses, problems. Sure, your wife or partner is the one who's physically showing the signs, and it's easy to acknowledge that for the world. The OBGYN is the obvious one for me. They basically ignore you if you go to your wife/partner's appointments. Sure, you get the, hey, how are you? Look forward to this, Dad. Not one medical professional person in our pregnancy journey had to ask how I'm handling things. So you have to be your own advocate, and it's just one more thing that you have to do. But I guess that's why we're all here. Okay, rant's over. So that was his direct quote. And he follows it up by saying, basically what I'm trying to get at is that there's no official father support in the pregnancy as a business system. So you have to go and find it yourself. So that was his, and I think that's why he personally gets a lot of value in our Discord server and our course content, because that's where he found it. And he's now one of our mods in our private like staff's channel within Discord. He mentioned, like, I'm going to invite myself to the podcast, and Andrew, if you're listening to this, we'll have you on because we definitely want to have you on to share your perspective as well, especially in those first weeks when Ben welcomes his newborn. But Ben, what are your thoughts on what Andrew had to say there about being your own advocate and finding your way through the pregnancy journey, because you may not be asked about your feelings, your thoughts leading up to the birth.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think this is a really important topic to talk about because, I think dads end up, as they're going through the pregnancy journey and sort of, especially like really engaged fathers who really want to be a part of things, who want to be a part of decision making, be a part of, figuring out what products to get, figuring out, how to raise the kid, what plans you're going to make, what, if you're involved in putting a birth plan together, like you're an engaged father, and that's a really special role to play. But I think along with that, you do have a lot of fears and anxieties and things that you don't know and don't understand and that you're not kind of clued into because, I know in my experience, most of the material, most of the questions that get asked are all about mom, which is, understandable, right? Like she is growing a human being in her body. Like that's an incredible thing. Yeah. But I think we're doing dads a disservice by ignoring the signs of, whether it's struggling with your mental health, struggling with anxiety, struggling with, whether it's, dads can suffer from postpartum depression or postpartum anxiety, because they feel like they can't help or they're not doing enough or, they're doing too much. They're not adjusting to the sleep schedule. Yeah. One of the things I think about is like, when I'm going through and doing, appointment scheduling for the baby, right? Because there's so many appointments in the first couple weeks that you need to go to. There's always a questionnaire, but the questionnaire is typically geared towards mom. Are you experiencing this? Are you experiencing, thoughts of self-harm or depression or are you, how are you sleeping? How are you? But these are typically all questions that are directed at mom. And not survey questions that are usually answered by dad.
Yeah. I know the questionnaire that you're talking about.
So I think what's really important is as a father this is not going to change overnight. And so it's important for us as men, as dads, to advocate on our own behalf, to say, I don't feel right. I don't feel like things are okay. Or, I think I just need some help. I need a support system. I need whatever it is. So that maybe there are some resources out there. Maybe there's resources like, like the Father Figured course or the Discord where dads kind of really go in and support each other. There's a lot of groups on, I hate to point people to like Facebook, but there's a lot of Facebook groups out there, like dads supporting dads. And there's a lot of great content creators out there. One of the channels I stumbled across was called Dads Who Try, which I think is really interesting. And it's kind of the same format. It's like dads talking about being fathers and the struggles of that. And I think it just helps people not to feel so alone and know where they can go, for help. And I will always advocate for people to go to therapy. I think everybody in the world could use some form of therapy. I know I've been a few times. I know I should probably do a lot more of it because I'm sure there's a lot of stuff I need to work through. But even if you don't think you do, just to have somebody to talk to and bounce ideas off of is incredibly helpful for just getting perspective on your life.
Yeah, absolutely. I personally actually haven't been, but I'm more than open to it because there's plenty of things that I feel like I could certainly benefit from. And I think I'd actually like to do it with my wife too, like a session where we, do therapy together. Just, our marriage is fine. It's great. But, I think it's always nice to, have a little health check there. And I think it's a way to strengthen a marriage too. But
even to just have that objective third party to say like, this is okay. This is just to look at, how you communicate, how you work with each other, helping you identify issues before they become issues is really important to, it shows that you're doing the work to maintain your marriage and your relationship. Yeah. And especially during that pregnancy journey. I mean, that's dads we don't get enough direction on how to be good advocates for ourselves. We get direction on how to be advocates for our partners when things might be going wrong there. But then we don't. I know for me, I didn't feel right taking up that space because I felt like that space should be reserved for her. Like, she's the one going through the pregnancy. She's the one going through these things. She's the one that's going to birth a baby. And it's like, do I want to like lay my stuff out,
dude?
and
I chatted
about me,
dude. I chatted with Dr. Singley about this. He's the head of Center for Men's Excellence out of San Diego, and he chatted about that very same thing about like, she's going through this, she's going through that, and he's like, but you are too, man, and you are a very valuable part of this whole process. Like, you're the dad,
right?
And you got to acknowledge that you're going through things too. And I do want to say something. Like, one thing about being a content creator in this niche is that you get feedback from all these different types of people. And I've had people saying like, guys who just like, why would you ever need support to talk it out? Like, we're guys. It's like, I don't need to ever do, like, this is a waste of time. This is stupid.
Just
what you're doing,
it and never talk about it.
Yeah, exactly. And he goes, it's easy. Just listen to whatever your wife tells you, and it's easy. Like, why would you ever need a course or to chat with other guys? And I wanted so badly to just like set him straight. Like, if your strategy is just listen to and do whatever your wife says and not be proactive, I'm very disappointed, and I just want to say
that's such
so
a
many things.
Passive approach to life, though.
That's what I mean, and I don't really respond negative. I just like, if that's what you think, I'm not going to try to fight you on that. Like, whatever. I want to put my attention to the guys who need the help, who need the support, and who want to chat this through. That's fine. Yeah. So I'm not trying to change your mind, right? But it's I'm happy for the guys who step into this and say, I want to be proactive in this. I want it to, how can I, set things up right? How can I be an involved dad? Am I doing it? Who are asking those questions as opposed to like, well, figure it out. That's it. Cause, and I'm not saying that that's a bad way of doing things. Like, that's kind of, frankly, that's how I did.
Sometimes it works. Like 90% of the time, that's how it feels. Like, oh, we'll just figure it out when we get there.
Right. But I think people do need to acknowledge the fact that like, there is absolute value in connecting with a community of guys and chatting about things that you otherwise may not have felt comfortable about. Right. I think down the line of this podcast, like, I'd like to open up discussions about like, hey man, how has your sex life changed since baby? Like, it's been hard, huh? And like talking about finances, things that are taboo that we're not supposed to be talking about. I personally find value in that because it helps me better understand like my life situation and what's normal, what's not, as opposed to just sitting back passively, just saying, this is whatever. I remember it's a bad comment, but it's one of my favorite comments. Someone posted, your videos, man, this is the absolute pussification of the Western male. And it basically just like, you're a beta, I guess. I don't know.
Probably had alpha. Yeah, they probably had alpha something in their username, right?
Yeah, but here's the thing. It was a mom who said that. It wasn't even a guy. It was a mom who commented. I was like,
awesome.
Boy.
Awesome.
Yeah. So I didn't even know how to respond to that. I was like, so you don't want the dad to be involved in this? Like, I was so confused. So
you don't want fathers to be engaged.
Yeah.
So here's the thing is like admitting that as a man you have emotions is like, to me, it is part and parcel for me being better as a human being. Like admitting that I do feel things, that I do, not wallowing in them, but admitting that like I have feelings, I have fears, I have anxieties because I'm a human being. Like I feel these things because I'm human, not because I'm less than, not because I'm, that I don't have enough testosterone or whatever, like that makes me less of a man. I mean, all of it is related to me trying to be the best version of myself so that I can be the best father and husband that I'm able to be. And I should constantly be pursuing that. Mm-hmm. And if that means working on my mental health, if that means working on my physical health, if that means working on my spiritual health, whatever it is, I should be open to doing those things to ensure that my family and my relationships are healthy and progressing in the right direction.
Absolutely. I do want to, if for any listeners, just about me, right? I do want to preface it by saying, like, personally for me, I've never dealt with any sort of anxiety or depression, at least on like a clinical level. I'm happy to say, like, I've just never really dealt with that. But my wife, especially after having kids, like, has really gone through postpartum anxiety in particular. So that's something that we've had to navigate, and I'm sure we'll talk about that down the line in episodes. But like, even me not having, gone through that, like, I am still frustrated at times. I'm still like confused at times, and I'm still trying to like navigate certain aspects of fatherhood. Where I'm like, oh, what the hell am I doing? Why are they just acting like this? Like, am I doing this wrong? Am I ruining this? Like, what am I doing? So like, I'm in tune with that, and I'm curious, and I'm like unsure, and I'm uncertain, and I think it is good to have people at least hear out different opinions and approaches, as opposed to just shutting it off and saying, no, you can figure this out. Because this is a new, I don't know, it's a new generation of dad out there who, it's okay to open up about, like, man, I don't know what the heck I'm doing. Like, my wife won't have sex with me anymore. Like, is this all right? Like, what's going on with you guys?
Is this normal? Am I doing something wrong? Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I think
it's important to have those conversations, because again, what's the point of suffering in silence? Like, you have a community of other guys, of fathers, of close friends, and, whoever it is that you feel comfortable having that conversation with, whether it's, online, so that it's not face to face, whether it's with a best friend, whether it's with a therapist, whatever it is, like, you need to talk about it at some point, because if you don't talk about it, you never learn from it, you never grow from it, and you never find a potential solution. And that's one of the biggest challenges, right? Is like, how do we learn and grow as men, as dads, as fathers, and as husbands if we never talk about the issues that we're facing? And we may not always find that through traditional avenues, right? Like, you're probably not going to find that during the OB appointments. You're probably going to have to go out and seek that until it becomes, something a little bit more relevant and mainstream. Yeah, absolutely. So we'll, the guy who originally put that question out there on Discord, we're going to have him on one of these coming podcasts, because he's a really, really cool guy. But I think that's where we'll end things. Ben, do you have any closing thoughts? No, just probably in the next episode I will be just ranting uncontrollably, because I will not have slept for several days. So we're going to take you real time through the journey of stepping into parenting two kids. Well, that's where we're gonna leave you guys. The next time we see Ben, we hear from Ben, he'll be a dad of two, and he'll be in the thick of it. So we'll get to hear it from a firsthand experience. Until then, also just be aware that it's a big life transition, so we might have to take a break from the podcast for a week or so. We'll see how Ben's feeling. So it might get really short. Yeah. It'll be 15 minutes. Like, this sucks. All right, give us a 5-star review. I'm out. This is so hard. Bye. So we'll keep you guys posted. But for now, if you guys can give us a 5-star review on podcasts, where do you listen to? Oh, on Spotify. That's what it's called. Spotify, Apple or Spotify. Yeah. We'd 5-star review. It helps the podcast, helps us grow. It helps us grow. We'd love to grow and get this thing going and help it be a resource to other guys who are out there who are just curious, who are just curious. So, hey, last thing real quick. Have you heard of Justin Baldoni and his podcast called Man Enough? I have not. Dude, phenomenal. Go check him out after we're done recording. Listen.
Yeah, a really good listen.
right.
It's called Man Enough by with Justin Baldoni.
I'll add it to the list.
Absolutely.
All right.
Oh, well, thank you guys for listening, and we'll catch you in the next one. Peace.